There may be, I mean, butters.
Everybody ready?
Yeah.
We got a quorum?
Is everyone on, Colleen? I'm
think
here.
There he is.
Is everyone else? Yep. Okay. All right. Seeing as it is now 7:03, we're going to start the meeting, April 28th, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions in the open meeting law, GLC 3818, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. Welcome to the planning board's meeting for Wednesday, April 28, 2021. This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia and is being conducted remotely. Okay, and calling the meeting ID and code, everyone would have that to get on. So what about calling into the meeting? Do we need to say that number or?
No, I showed it. I think we did.
Okay. All right. First up, we have administrative review. One thing I wanted to mention, Colleen, you kind of email out to the board members the positions that they took for the committees.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I can certainly do that.
Okay, awesome. If you could email that out. Is there anything else under administrative review?
The 235 Littleton Road, we thought was going to be ready. Brian Melissi wants to wait till the next meeting where he'll have an A&R and the final plans, and you can do it all at once.
Okay. So we're, do we need to do anything with that to put it off or?
Nope, it was just administrative, no legal notice.
Okay. All right. So we will skip that and go to 79 High Street, I believe.
Can I pop in here quickly?
Yeah.
That's in a butter and I'm involved in it, so I'm going to have to recuse. I'm going to shut down my video and mute.
Okay.
Kim,
Excellent. Yes.
I also have to recluse. I have a business that's adjacent to it.
Okay. So Nance and Mike Raisback will be stepping down for the 79 High Street.
Noted.
It is an A&R. Okay, thank you guys. So it's an A&R, approval not required plan, 79 High Street. Peter and JC Sijeska request endorsement of an approval not required plan for the property located at 79 High. Are they here?
Mr. Chairman, this is Sue Carter from Places Associates.
We are here if needed.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Sue.
So this is an A&R plan to create a half-acre parcel, separating it from the house lot. The parcel is approximately half an acre, and the remaining house lot is 1.17 acres, which exceeds the minimum lot size required for a lot in this district. just so the board is aware, this is a pre-existing non-conforming lot in that it only has 125 feet of frontage. We are not changing the frontage, so we are not increasing the nonconformity. In addition, the existing structure has 20.5 feet to the sideline setback when the minimum zoning requirement is 25 feet under current zoning. So the house itself is also pre-existing non-conforming. So this parcel will be cut out and it will be sold to an abutter so that it's not a building lot on itself because it does not have frontage, but it will be joined to another adjacent property that will have frontage.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Let me bring it around the board. We'll start with Henry.
No questions.
Okay, how about Mike Walsh?
Good evening. No particular questions on this one. Thank you.
Okay, Peter? Paul McDougal, I'm sorry.
I have no questions.
Okay, Deirdre Conley?
No questions or issues.
Okay, and Erica, would you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, I think I got everybody. I myself have no questions on this, pretty straightforward. Can I get a motion?
Yeah, I'll give you the motion to approve the 79 High Street, the A&R number 674 for approval.
Second.
Is second by Henry. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I'll do a roll call since we're remote. Henry, you,
Aye.
go ahead and, okay, Mike Walsh,
Aye.
Deirdre,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and Erica.
Aye.
Okay, there you go. You have it unanimous.
Thank you
All
very
set.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, Mike and Nance can come back, by the way.
Thank you.
All right,
There we are.
next up. Yep, go ahead.
Tim, I'm not bringing my video up. I've got 2 bars out of 5.
Okay. All right, that's fine. So we're gonna go to 9 Acton Road now. John Fanaris requests a submitted plan be found in accordance with the findings of the CBOD applicability previously issued for the site. So just before we start on this would be just for applicability. That is it. We did have some questions though, and I'll bring it around to the board members. You want to hear from the proponent first? Why don't we do that? We'll hear from John Fanaris or a representative.
Great. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Philip Iliopoulos. I'm an attorney here in Chelmsford at 9 North Road, representing the applicant, John Fanaris. First, I want to welcome the new members. Congratulations. Hopefully it stays congratulations for several years to come. So we're here before you tonight. I just want to kind of, especially for the new members, give you some history of the site. I think everyone knows where it is on Acton Road. It's the site that when you immediately take a right onto Route 27, which is Acton Road, it's the first building on the right. And it's been for sale for several years. It's also been for lease. And the current owner just hasn't had much success. When we first presented this to the board, going back almost 2 years ago this summer, we had put the property under agreement, and at the time, the landlord seller had indicated that they hadn't had much interest in anyone looking to buy the property and use it as commercial. And since that time, the last time this was before the board was a year ago when they approved applicability. That transaction kind of fell apart just because there wasn't really sufficient units to make the project work. So since that time, the properties continued to be marketed, but unfortunately, just no one has expressed an interest for commercial. There is one existing tenant in the building. It's a tenant at will, a dance studio. And to my understanding, that's the only current tenant in the property. So the last time we were before the board, we had presented raising the building and building a single building condominium. It was a 4-story, 32-unit building that had above ground parking on either side of the property. And it exceeded the height restriction in Chelmsford by about 7 feet. So it was a little bit of a height issue, but ultimately the board did find on or about May of last year applicability for this site. And it was applicability at 32 units. I'll say that although the board found applicability, there wasn't a strong enthusiasm, I would say, from the board. We were able to show that we could get that number of units by right. The board had us do a conceptual plan that showed we could sort of get the 32 units by way of, sort of individual townhouse style units. And so ultimately we got the applicability, but as some of the senior members will say, I sensed that there wasn't a strong love for the project. And ultimately with the 32 units, the applicant just financially couldn't make it work. So what we've done is we've reworked the project, and Katie's gonna walk you through it. And to really address the two main issues I think that the board had at the time. One was, even though we could sort of justify 32 units, I think there was a feeling that that was too much for the site. And I think the height was a problem. Having one big building there, the board didn't really love. So we think we've come up with a plan to maybe satisfy some of the concerns that the board raised, and hopefully make it a little bit more of a project that the town and the board would actually want and support. So I think that's a little bit of the history. What I think I'll do is I'll turn it over to Katie, who can kind of walk you through the revised plan, and then we can sort of take it from there.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Katie Enright with Howard Stein Hudson. Phil kind of gave you a little bit of the history, and I was present on a lot of those meetings, so I was able to kind of recall a lot of the history from the previous project. As Phil stated, the new project has been basically redesigned and rethought out based on that CVOD applicability that was written by the planning board. And we looked a lot at the things that essentially the decision said that the board didn't feel there was enough information, or that it was justified, or that the board didn't really like or agree with as part of that plan. So this is the existing site that exists there today. In this area here, you can see Beaver Brook runs behind, and this was taken during the construction of the grist mill. So you've got the gas station on the corner with the Dunkin' Donuts and Care Cleaners. And then this is the van storage here for the transportation company that's behind Artisans Exchange. So what we've done is, this was the previous project that was brought before this board for applicability. So I just kind of wanted to kind of bring you back to kind of where it ended. So this was the project, this was the plan that was part of the presentation before the board. As Phil stated, it was a 32-unit project in 4 stories with 71 surface parking spaces. So you can see how that laid out. In looking at the project for this new developer, this developer likes to build townhome units, and looked at the decision and looked at the parcel, and essentially restarted the proposal as far as how this site should be laid out. We looked specifically at the requests or the commentary from the planning board during the last process, and also within the decision, and wanted to basically adhere to as many, if not all, of those comments or concerns from the original process. So what we've done is we've laid out a project here that's a townhome project. The project is set back 40 feet from the street. That was a discussion that I followed during the last planning board session for this site. That said, if we weren't to include any kind of commercial development within the lot, that the residences had to be set back 40 feet from the street. So you can see there's a significant green space in the front of these townhomes. I felt it was important that these townhomes face the street. and that they all had front doors that faced out to Acton Road. So as you can see, these townhomes will be developed with a front door facing Acton Road, but our garages would be at the back of the building. So that when you drive by Acton Road, you're not seeing parked cars. You're not looking at a bunch of different driveways coming in and out of the site. So we have 2 driveways in. The buildings have been situated in blocks of 2, 3. I believe there's a 5, a 4, and then at the back there's a 7. So certainly the ones that are in more than groups of 2 would need to be sprinkled. The back units would play so that the garage and the front door would be facing Acton Road. So they would be open space out to the rear of the site. And what that does is it consolidates the amount of impervious surface on site, which greatly reduces the impervious cover from the existing condition, then from the previous project to this project that you see here today. What we also looked at was pedestrian connectivity. It was important that this feel like a transition between the commercial spaces and the residential spaces that are just past us. And we paid special attention to the amount of buffer and how the buildings were proposed to be situated on the lot as to basically provide or look to least affect our residential neighbors, specifically to the west. And if you look to the west, there's an existing tree line that would continue to stay there that's actually off this property and would propose to meet the buffer requirements of the CVOD bylaw. And we've provided a 20-foot side setback or greater on the western side of the property. We've also really looked at the pedestrian connectivity aspect of it. So each of these townhomes would have access out to the sidewalk on Acton Road. We've proposed some park-like areas where there could be some benches placed along the sidewalk for respite off the existing sidewalk that exists on Acton Road today. And we've also provided pedestrian access to the rear of the site. So we don't own up to the brook. That's actually be connectivity back here for future. So what we're proposing to do is bring our connectivity essentially to the edge of the existing developed area in relationship to Beaver Brook today. So because the brook itself is considered a river, it's protected essentially within 100 feet of the river. We can't do anything new unless it's already existing there today. And anything within 200 feet of the river would be needed to be approved by the Conservation Commission and DEP. So we paid a lot of attention to making sure that we worked with the existing impervious footprint that was on the site there today, and make sure we were as efficient as possible with our pavement. So you can see we've followed the CVOD chart of requirements here. I believe the only places where we're starred are areas where something within the bylaw essentially trumped the requirement for setback. So things like side setback, there is a minimum and a maximum. We are going greater than the maximum side setback so that we can provide the 20-foot buffer that's required by the CVOD, the transition zone. So that's just one of the examples here that you'll see within the chart. We're also meeting the parking requirements, and we're doing this by providing one space inside the buildings, which again reduces the amount of pavement, one space outside the buildings, and then 1 per 5 for visitor spaces. So we're containing some of that impervious surface by not doing all surface parking. We're containing some of that within the buildings also. So just to do a comparison, we wanted to show you how the existing development that exists there today, the previous proposal and the current proposal, and how much less detrimental it really is to the site and to the essentially what's there today. So you can see the lot area is over an acre. It's about 55,000 square feet. The footprints of the existing building is 14,300. Previous proposal was almost 12,000. We're a little bit less than that with building footprint because we're only going 3 stories. Gross square footage, you can see existing, proposed, and where we are today. Impervious area, look at the reduction here. Existing is 45,000 square feet. The previous proposal knocked it down to 38, and we're down at 31,000 square feet for impervious surface. Again, lot coverage, 80% to 68 to 56. Open space is more than doubled on the site based on this proposal. So it's important to see really the evolution of the existing site here. We're working within the existing limits of pavement and building. The proposal that the CVOD applicability was based on, and then basically looking at the comments from the applicability and developing a new concept that we feel fits more appropriately into the decision that was previously issued. John has recently gotten a project approved in Andover. We don't have architectural plans for what we're looking to build here yet, but this is a project that John Faneros recently had built or approved, sorry, in Andover. So I wanted to show these as an example of the type of construction, the type of architecture that John is familiar with and that John builds. So these are 3 images that I can provide certainly after this evening to the board. But this isn't the plan that we're looking to build out there right now. It's just to give you a flavor of the type of project that John has built, has been approved recently, and the type of architecture that he would be looking to build on site. And we'd certainly be looking forward to, if the board so agrees that we fit within the previous applicability and looks favorably on us moving forward with the project, we could certainly come back with architecturals at a meeting to come, or we could certainly listen to your feedback tonight and make sure the project that we came back with fit within the requirements of this board. And with that, we're really looking tonight to find out if it's worthwhile for Mr. Faneros to continue down this path. We certainly hope that you feel that this is a better project for the site and would be looking forward to creating a full site plan package to move forward. With that, I believe, Phil, if there's anything else.
Oh, the other thing I would say, I'm assuming that the board has opinion letter from town council, hopefully, as part of your packet. Town council was asked to opine whether a project that came back would meet applicability and still fall within the grandfathering of the sewer moratorium. And my understanding of his opinion was that as long as the revision to the project wasn't more detrimental to the town than the previous applicability, that it would still meet that and still also come under the grandfathering of the sewer moratorium because it was presented prior to that. So I think from a legal standpoint, from my opinion, applicability, and I think from town council's opinion, is still in place because, objectively, the project has gotten smaller, less lot coverage, so it'd be hard to say that it was more detrimental than the 32-unit, 1-building project. But again, that's not all that we're sort of hoping for tonight. We really want the board to look at the site, look at what's there today and say, okay, is that going to work long-term, or are we going to be looking at that building the way it is indefinitely? And is this a better alternative? So that's sort of, I think, what we're hoping to hear from the board tonight. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you both. Why don't I bring it around the board? I'll start with Henry.
Yeah, I got a couple of things. I really, before I find applicability, I really would like town council here and the sewer commission here, because they can make all the letters they want, but everybody looks at us. And nobody in town that's been denied a project is going to be feeling really good about how a project gets denied, yet they get the sewer capacity a couple years later. I just think that needs to be a little bit better defined. The only other thing, I agree this is a much better project than what we saw before. The other thing that we need to be aware of is handicap parking spaces, because we've already had complaints that there's none in town, and I didn't see any on this plan. But I would definitely not want to take a vote until town council and the sewer department is here to take the heat instead of us. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, thanks, Henry. Mike Raisback.
Sure. Well, my reading of town council's letter is in agreement with Phil. I believe, at least with his opinion, that this that we're okay with the sewer, but I don't think there's anything wrong with getting that pinned down a little bit better. I like the project considerably better than its predecessors. I have one area of concern, which really isn't an applicability concern, but I'll bring it up anyway, because I know you guys like to have all the information as early as you can. And that is that there are potentially traffic issues at this intersection. I notice you've got two driveways coming out, and there may be very good reasons for that, like the circulation of fire trucks and what have you. On the other hand, if there were a way to only have one entry, even if it was a little bit wider, I think from a traffic point of view, it might be just a little bit safer. And I'll just throw that out there for your consideration later on. That's what I've got for now.
You're muted, Tim.
Sorry about that, Mike Walsh.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I agree. I like the project. I just want to, we're talking about the applicability tonight and the number of units. And I know I like this project. I think it looks a lot better. The only concerns, Katie, can you show us where the visitor parking is?
Yes, so there are 5 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. And so any unit would have 2 essentially assigned to it, 1 in, 1 out.
Okay. I know, and then again, on top of Mike's comment, it's not regarding applicability. I just get concerned, there is absolutely no parking on Route 27. So if someone had more than one guest at a time, I think the lot's really tight with just 5. There's no parking anywhere nearby for public parking, and that would just be a concern that I have. Maybe that can be worked out. I don't know. I like the idea of Mike about reducing the entrances. Maybe one way in, one way out would solve some of that. And then I don't understand, I'm still trying to digest the sewer commission because this is a whole new applicant. So wouldn't they just fall in line with, because this is post the moratorium being applied for? That's the only concern that I would have. But if town council's telling us one thing, then town council's telling us, but it'd be nice to have them here. So that's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Next up is Deidre.
Thank you. I also appreciate that this plan is much more, I'm much more amenable to this plan than the prior one. I share Mike and Henry's concerns about the sewer. I guess I'm a little unclear. We're not being asked for applicability. We're being asked, this is an update of applicability. I don't really know what that means. I tried to find guidelines for what are the criteria for applicability, and I couldn't find any, but it seems odd to me that having a new project that looks quite dramatically different than the prior, though definitely improved, a new engineer, a new developer, doesn't seem to me to be the same project. So it seems to me sensible that they would need a new applicability and for that matter, a proof plan. I looked at the old proof plan and I don't know enough about that either, and I couldn't find guidelines of that, and I don't know, maybe we should make some. But it seemed to me that those structures on the original proof plan that were in the presentation last May were very close together, and that's where they came up with, I mean, it was a higher number of units, I believe, but I think 30, so we're beneath that. But I just generally, for my edification, don't understand exactly about proof plans and like what makes one appropriate, because those buildings, like I said, seemed extraordinarily crowded together on that picture. And so I guess my first question is this a request for a determination of applicability? Because I think this wasn't advertised as a request for a determination of applicability. And so, and I also don't know what the requirements are for an applicability determination. And I wondered if we tried to give a determination of applicability without advertising this as such, if that would be potentially a violation of the open meeting law. And I also would like to hear from town council regarding the sewage.
Okay, thank you, Deidre. Next up, Nancy.
Thank you, Tim. I think we heard from town council regarding the sewerage. I would like to hear from the Sewerage Commission of whether this development is or is not included in the current sewerage plan, sewage coverage plan, and if they will issue a connection for this property. And past that, I would probably be okay with saying, okay, it can go or it can't go. If it is covered under their terms, as far as I'm concerned, it could be covered under the existing applicability. That said, I do have concerns, although I really like the symmetry, Katie, that's created by those two driveways. I am concerned about the proximity to that intersection. It's a very difficult intersection in terms of sight lines. And the closer you have cross traffic to that intersection, the more problems it's going to be. So please take that into consideration as you go away and think about what you're going to do with this. My other question, and I don't know who's the right person to answer this, but you guys can give it a try. What is the profile for your prospective buyers for these? We've been seeing most of the development in the center is the elder population, and townhouses are, with all their stairs, are not necessarily appropriate for that population. So then the question becomes, well, okay, who do you expect to be buying them? And they seem like pretty small townhouses, given their footprints. So I'm interested. Could you speak to that?
I think, why don't I have maybe John, I know John is supposed to be on the call. John, could you speak to sort of what you see in terms of the demographic of what type of buyer these might be marketed towards?
Yeah, sure. I think there are a lot of first-time home buyers would probably be doing it, or newly married people with, you know, 1 or 2 kids, something like that. I don't see too many elderly buying them because of, they usually want a garden style, not a townhouse.
Right.
Yeah, I'd expect that too. And with two bedrooms, it really is the first time.
First time home.
They're 3-bedroom units, and they're, I think, 1,900 square feet or 1,700 square feet. So they're rather larger townhouses. They're not small.
What's the footprint of them?
Katie, do you have it handy? I don't remember the actual box
I
itself.
believe it's 17 by 30.
17 by 30.
Yeah, and I thought I saw a note on one of the notes that said these were two bedrooms, 2-bedroom units with garages.
Yeah, no, they are
Underneath.
3-bedroom.
Yeah. All right. So if you're marketing to families with children, then I would expect that a development of this size would have some play area. And that would be something to consider as you go forward with this.
Yeah.
Good point.
Okay? And that's the end of my comments.
Nancy, just to follow up on your comment, right on the drawing that we're on right now, it says 2-bedroom units.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Under the parking requirement calculations done with 2 bedrooms. Does that change, Katie, if it's 3? No?
I don't believe it does, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it does, but it certainly changes the population and changes the need for outdoor play space.
Okay, you all set, Nance?
I am, yep.
Okay. Next up, Paul.
I like the project personally. And I guess it just falls on the sewer. What they come back with. That's the only concern I would have. You went from a 32 unit, I don't know how many bedroom those were, how many bath, but now you're down to 24, so it seems like a different project, but it's a better project. So I like it. I have no other
Okay.
concern.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Erica.
I don't have any other concerns or questions that haven't already been voiced. I do think the guest parking is something that needs to be considered, especially considering how difficult that area is to navigate, especially that turn onto Bartlett Street. Being one way is, people don't have a good time with that a lot of the time. And then also the focus of it being for young families. I would be concerned about appropriate space for kids, as well as bus route access, stuff like that. And that's all.
Okay, thank you, Erica. So I think I got everybody, so I'll just make a couple of comments. I mean, I think everything was pretty much voiced. I think being more detrimental with what we're going through right now with the sewer, I think in that case it probably would be, but it seems that the lawyer is saying that that should not even come into play for applicability. So that's the one thing I wouldn't mind having them on to discuss. And also, why isn't this a new project? So I don't know, Evan, can we set up for the town attorney to come in? Sounds like that's what most of the members would like. And maybe or if is Christina on, that she could voice her opinion on the sewer? Am I open? Am I on?
Tim, I want to hear from the sewer commission.
Sewer commission, okay. All right, so Evan, if possible, could we set up, I think if most of the members felt that way, if we could set up for the town council and the sewer commission to be at a meeting to discuss further?
Yeah, that's fine.
Assuming they want to obviously probably wait for us to vote, right, until we hear from them?
Yeah, we're definitely fine waiting. We do, we have some, restrictions on sort of taking the project to the next step from a timing perspective, but I think your next meeting, I'm assuming, would be May 12th. That makes sense.
Okay.
A couple of things that I just wanted to sort of say. I do think you'll hear from town council, because this was researched because of this project. They wanted to know whether or not for this project and any other projects, this applicability still stood. And I think what you're going to hear from town council is that it absolutely still stands. It's good for 2 years.
So we probably agree with you, Phil, but the thing is, we get the heat.
No. I guess I totally understand you want to hear it at a meeting from town council. I'm not trying to talk you out of that, but I do think I think that's where it's going to end up. What's really more important is for the board, if not tonight, at that next meeting, to sort of also just sort of weigh in. Is this sort of what they would rather see at the site than what's there today? Because I think that ultimately, so we're not wasting the board's time, we're not wasting the applicant's time and money. I think we're going to get through applicability, but we care about what the board's going to think later on. And so maybe that could just be in the back of the board members' minds, assuming that town council eases those concerns. Is this something that would be better than what's there today, and something that the board, with those concerns that were raised tonight being addressed, would like to see there? That's important.
I think you.
Phil, can I ask you a question?
Yep, go ahead.
I just want to ask Phil a question.
Absolutely.
Is it the same question, Phil, in a legal sense, that whether the applicability stands and whether or not this is a new project? Isn't that a distinct question?
So the applicability is good for 2 years. The applicability follows the site. And And anyone within that 2-year period can bring forth modifications to what the board had previously found in terms of applicability for a proposed project. So if there are changes, instead of going forward and doing full permitting, you can go back to the applicability and stage and say, okay, we've modified the project a bit. And if the board finds that the modifications are not more detrimental to the project they found the original applicability on, they can support applicability and then go forward with the full permitting type process.
No, I get that, but the applicability, I mean, if we all agree that this project is applicable,
Mhm.
that to me, with a new engineer, new developer, and new dramatically different project, even one that I quite like, it's not clear to me that it's not a new project. And when we have such limited sewer resources, it seems to me that if we let this one jump ahead, though it's clearly a new project, that's kind of inequitably putting our thumb on the scale of who gets to go forward and who doesn't.
Well, the only reason why this would be able to go forward is because it was applied for prior to the town even entertaining a sewer moratorium, let alone voting for it. So I think that's.
But that was a different project.
Town council, but I think town council will advise you that in fact, this does fall under the same applicability, even though it's a new applicant and the project has changed its look and its feel.
Okay.
Okay, but I think you're right. You guys need to hear that from town council, not from me. And we welcome that opinion because I think, he'll make everyone at peace with that issue.
Can I just ask a quick question, Phil? But maybe this is for Evan too. Where in the bylaw does it state that the applicability lasts for 2 years?
It's actually in the decision.
It's also in the COA bylaw.
It's in the sewer bylaw. Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to learn from it because that's new news that I heard. So I was unaware that it is allowed for 2 years.
Yep.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I think overall, most of us like the project. Obviously, we have concerns, but I don't think it's, things we couldn't work through. But the major concern is the sewer, and also, is this a new project? And I think that's what's confusing to us. So hopefully with the attorney and with the sewer commissioner, we could get the answers we need to move on. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right, so we're going to reschedule 9 Acton Road, Evan, and do we need to do anything or with
Yeah,
that?
just do a motion to continue.
Okay, can I get a motion to continue?
Motion to continue?
Second,
Second.
all in favor? I'll
Aye.
go through. Henry,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
R, Mike W,
Aye.
Deidre,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and Erica.
Aye.
Aye, and I am an aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you, Bill.
All right, next up is 200 Turnpike Road. All Star Management LLC requests a special permit per section 195-5 use regulations and attachment 1 use table to operate a 2,800 square foot doggy daycare commercial kennel. A special permit per section 195-18 to reduce parking and section 195-144C to reduce the buffer strips and any other zoning relief that is deemed necessary. The site is located in the IA Limited Industrial District and consists of approximately 3.85 acres as shown on the assessors map 106-328-5 and 6. Is there anyone here from All Star Management would like to present?
Any letters?
Any letters?
I did not bring them home. Christina, do you want to read your letter? There was no other concerns from any departments, and we did not get one from fire.
This is Christina. I didn't have a letter. I don't think, did I? No, I didn't have a letter.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. And we didn't receive any other letters on that? I thought I saw something.
No, we
No, maybe.
got letters, but they were not of any concern.
Okay, so they were not of concern. Okay. Did those get sent out to us as well? Is that what I must?
No, I did not send those.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what kind of letters are not of any concern?
It's not that they're not any concern. I send out the package to all the different departments, fire and police and DPW, engineering, everybody. And they send back letters and they had no concerns with this project.
Okay,
I did not get one from fire. I did not get one from fire.
Okay, going forward, could we just make sure that these are, brought forward or brought home, just so that in case someone asks, you'll be able to say specifically what they said. Okay, so we did get an email about an opposition, right, for the application at 200 Turnpike. It was received today, though. Is that okay? And what happens with that letter, even though it was received late?
That's up to you.
Do we have it that we could read in? I mean, it is pretty long. Did everyone get a chance to read the letter?
I read it briefly. Could I suggest that if we can, we postpone this for another meeting so everybody can get a chance to read it? It is quite lengthy and makes some points that we're going to need to address.
Yeah, I would agree, Mike. I mean, this is definitely something we want to make sure everyone reviews before making a decision. And also, we could, if there's any other letters calling at that time, we can put them in. So do you want to still have them present and then we could come back, or?
Yeah, I think
Sorry to
I'd
have
like
to
to
do that.
present where we're here tonight.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. You want to go ahead and start? That's fine.
All right. So good evening again. Just for the record, my name is Philip Iliopoulos. I'm an attorney here at Chelmsford with offices at 9 North Road, and I'm representing All-Star Management. And the owner of the building and the owner of this prospective business will be Thais Mushazan. And what I'd like to just give you a little background about Thais. She's got a long history of working with animals. Most recently, over the last couple of years, she's taking a passion of doing animal rescue. And she primarily focused in Puerto Rico. She's saved over 80 dogs and cats in Puerto Rico by bringing them here to the United States and finding them homes. And mainly because of the devastation with the hurricanes. A lot of the animals there were homeless, abandoned. And so she's kind of made that one of her passions. She also does rescue at her house, rescues animals, tries to find homes for them, even on the local level. And she saw a real shortage of doggy daycares, for lack of a better word. We've got a couple of them here in Chelmsford that are operating at full capacity. And she owns this building. There's one existing tenant in it currently, but I would say about 95% of the building currently is vacant. There was a tenant there for about 20 plus years that moved out within the last year. So part of her desire is to bring some life back to this building, but also to do something that she's passionate about, which is to take care of animals. So this would be your typical doggy daycare, very similar to daycare for young children. People drop off their dog in the morning on their way to work and pick the dog up in the afternoon on their way home. That would be sort of her initial focal point. The bylaw allows up to 100 dogs per kennel, but at this point, she sees capacity of about 50 to 60 animals. She would be very selective in terms of what types of breeds and animals she brings in to make sure that they mix well with other dogs. If anyone's been around dogs or is a dog owner, there are dogs that like other dogs and there are dogs that don't. And if it's a dog that doesn't like to be around other dogs, those wouldn't be allowed as clientele. With regards to Sewer capacity, we do have capacity, obviously a little bit different issue here. This is an existing building. We're not changing the building. We've worked with the town and engineering to determine that in addition to the kennel license, there could be up to 16 individual crates. That would be sort of the max based on the sewer that's allotted for this building. And so why would you have crates in a building? Let's say, for example, you have a dog that's been washed and you don't want to put it back out with the other dogs. You could kind of keep it in the crate until its owner comes to pick it up. So the town, in looking at the sewer capacity, would allow up to 16 crates or individual kennels, and we're comfortable living within that number based on the confines of the sewer capacity issue. So we're not going to be creating any more, asking for any more capacity than what the building has today from that perspective. We've got some good pictures and locations. Maybe what I can do is ask Katie to walk us through a little bit of just the overall plans. And we're going to also kind of talk a little bit about some of the things that we'll be doing for to protect the dogs. So we can I can chat about that towards the back end of the discussion.
Right. Good evening again, everyone. Katie Enright with Howard Stein Hudson. I'm just going to show you a picture quickly, but this is essentially the area that we're talking about here. It's the last two overhead doors as you wrap around the building. I'll show you where this is on the site plan. So this area here would be essentially this depressed area. It's about 6 to 8 feet below the grade out on Turnpike Road, would be the area that would be transformed into the outdoor area or play area as shown on the plan. So just to kind of go back to the plan, this still has the improvements that we were here before you a couple of years ago are still shown on this plan because there's really been no updates to the building since the previous tenant vacated. So there's still some additional changes to the plan that were shown on the previous site plan approval. What we're really changing is two areas. This little trash enclosure dumpster area here, which we're adding to the plan. And then everything else is located in this corner. And the view shed that I showed you just a minute ago was looking down towards this concrete wall here. So the two overhead doors exist here. The doggy daycare would be in the two units, basically on the underground floor here, that opens up to this area here that's bound by this concrete retaining wall. So this pavement would be pulled up and it would be switched out for a system similar to this here, so that when the dogs were to go outside and essentially use the bathroom, the water wouldn't end up in the drainage system. It would end up in the ground like it would within your yard area. And then all solid waste would end up in the dumpster. Just to show you, this area here is currently, would remove 6 parking spaces from the plan also. When we were here before, we received a special permit for a reduction in parking. This creates a little bit more of a reduction in parking here by taking away these 6 parking spaces in this area. Nothing's changing in this area related to drainage or grading. It's all being done within the profile that's shown here within this PET system. And then just to show you a little bit more pictures, as you come around, kind of looking the other way, this is the parking lot that's adjacent to Turnpike Road. So you can see the area is pretty well depressed in here, and there's retaining walls on both sides of the area that would be the play area. I believe that's it.
Can we go back to the picture with the gentleman, Katie, that's standing?
Yeah,
up on the
standing.
wall?
Yes.
What we're proposing for the dogs is to construct along this wall, both on this side as well as the side for our budding property, about a 5 to 6 foot solid fence. And the reason being is that so that the dogs don't, really to protect the dogs, quite honestly, so that no one's coming up, to the wall and trying to, interact with the dogs. That can sometimes make them nervous. So we really want the pen itself to be fully enclosed from their perspective so that they can't see anything outside of the pen except the sky, really. So there'd be a fence along the wall that runs along Turnpike Road. And then if we go one more or two more pictures forward, the fence would continue at a 90-degree angle along the abutting property. And then there'd be fencing along the parking lot where the pen would end. And again, the purpose is really to protect the dogs so that they're not distracted by what's outside around them. They're safe. And, I think sort of two concerns that were voiced in the opposition letter surrounded noise and surrounded waste. And so from the perspective about noise, certainly the existing grade helps to create a natural sound barrier. The fencing will help that as well. But more so by cutting out any visuals, you're not going to have dogs that are nervous and are barking. And I think the other thing you'll see is that when dogs are together but monitored like this, you don't have this barking. Dogs bark when they're alone, when they're scared. If there's someone coming into their territory, the delivery man pulling up the Amazon guy, that's typically when my dog barks, when the Amazon truck comes up the driveway. Other than that, he doesn't bark. So, we really want to make sure the dogs feel safe and are comfortable. And I think if you look at the other doggy daycares, there's two on 110, the Rough House, Chelmsford, that has one. There's one on Acton Road, right by Kate's Corner. You don't hear dog complaints for noises or anything like that, and so we don't expect that to be an issue. We understand people that don't have dogs might be concerned. Oh, we can hear barking all day long. These dogs will never be alone. There'll be staff with them at all times, so they're never unattended. And again, you just don't see that. And then from a waste perspective, the waste will be obviously collected immediately. There's state regulations about, the health codes related to animal waste. There's also local regulations. And we would dispose of that waste in a enclosed container within the building. So this is not going to be a situation where you're going to have smells. And if you go by the countryside or Rough House and drive around, you don't smell anything. So they take care of their waste, and Thais would as well. She's also hired a company, an experienced company, to help her set up the business that's established these for other existing doggy daycares. So she does have someone that will be assisting her in setting up the building. So I think it would be helpful, at least while we're in the public input. I know the board is going to maybe be looking for some information or some time to maybe get some letters, but I would like to still hear from the board just to see if there are information that they want us to bring forth that we're able to provide that at an upcoming meeting.
Okay, why don't we start with Henry?
There we go.
Henry?
All right, I was muted. Yeah, I mean, hopefully you can actually meet with some of the neighbors out there and talk to them and explain what's going on. And maybe we can have some of this worked out other than the board having to handle it. I understand that there's a lot of people adjacent to this. I also know I go to Kate's Corner quite often in the afternoon to get a sandwich. You never hear a dog bark there. You're dealing with the water coming out from the animals, which is one thing we have to be concerned about. I really don't have much of an issue other than hopefully you can work something out with the neighbors. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Henry. Next up, Nancy.
Yeah, this is an industrial property, and this application is so much less invasive than many things that could go in here by right. in terms of the pervious nature of the play yard, when we put in the dog park, we went through all those calculations and found that it was a non-issue, so I'm not worried about that. The licensing, town licensing and inspections and the state licensing deal with the waste issues. I'm not worried about that. You need to work with your neighbors. That's all I can tell you.
Okay, next up is Mike W.
Thanks, Tim. No, I agree with the neighbors issue. It would be nice, and I understand why on the property you have the outdoor play area, why you have it there. It would have been nice if it was on the other end of the property, away from the residents, further away, but I think that's all. That's the only comment I have right now.
Thanks, Mike. Next up, Mike Raisback.
Yeah, well, a couple of thoughts. First of all, we got that one rather substantial letter late. And I have a sense that there are some other neighbors there that will want to submit something. So I don't think it would be unreasonable for us to not open the public hearing tonight, but to open it in 2 weeks when everybody's had a chance to submit. That said, at least on its face, this looks pretty reasonable. So I would suggest that we defer to the next meeting if that's acceptable to the proponents and the board, and then prepare to have a somewhat more lengthy discussion with the neighbors.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Next up, Deidre.
I agree with everything that's been said. I mean, I do think it's unfortunate that it's quite, there's quite a bit of proximity to the nearby residences. I understand that it's zoned industrial and that much more onerous projects could go in there. But yeah, I hope they can talk to the neighbors and reach some kind of an agreement.
Thank you, Deidre. Next up, Erica. Erica? Paul? Paul?
We've had one letter presented by the abutters. Is that what I'm getting here?
We have one so far.
3 Milestone Ave. How close is Milestone Ave to this property? I'm drawing a blank on it.
We've got a map. I don't know if it shows it. Let's see.
It would have been nice to see like the residents too.
Yeah,
you know,
I can't picture it. I cleaned those buildings as a kid when Wang was there and stuff, but.
So it's across the street from this abutting property. You really can't see it on this map. So it's outside of the abutter, what the town would consider a butter notification. Probably, I would say, if I had to guess, 600 feet maybe.
You're talking,
Pauline's.
Phil, are you talking 50 dogs there? Is that what we're talking? Did I hear 50?
Yeah, 50 to 60 is what we're looking at.
Now, what do they have at Kate's Corner? Like 10?
I don't know about Kate's Corner. I honestly, because I don't use that one. I know that there's a kennel approved at the what was the old Chelmsford Mall. I don't know if they still call it the Chelmsford Mall, that has 100 dogs. You've got a max of 100 at Rough House, and I believe that the license at Chelmsford, a countrywide vet, is also 100.
Okay. It just seemed like a lot of dogs to me.
Yeah, so 100's the max that's allowed under the bylaw at any one time. So you can kind of see it a little bit better there where those properties are. Thank you.
This is where we'd want something like that anyway, over in those industrial areas. So.
Okay. And again, set, Paul?
I am.
Okay. Next up, Erica. Are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I was
no worries.
I couldn't get unmuted before for some reason. I had one question about the capacity for how many dogs would be allowed there. And I was also curious about, there is only one business using that building currently, correct?
Correct, we have one tenant in there currently.
And how long have the other units in that building been empty?
The existing tenant moved out, I want to say within the last year.
Okay, and so it's been mostly unused
Mostly
since
unused.
then? Okay.
Yeah, we've been marketing it. The building consists of 12 units. We've got about 2 or 3 parties that are, I would say, very serious under LOIs for that property. Again, it's zoned industrial, so most of the interest we have in that site will be office and manufacturing. And so we've got about 2 or 3 very serious parties for 3 of the units.
Okay, and so the doggy daycare would only be occupying a part of the building and not the whole thing?
Correct. So the doggy daycare would be operating out of just so each unit, there's 12 units and each unit is first and second floor. So when you think about it, almost like townhouse, 2-style townhouses going back down the whole length of the building, the doggy daycare would be on the lower level, the first 2 units, but just the lower level of the first 2 units. So it'd be restricted just to that lower level. And that's why the outdoor recreational facility would be adjacent to it.
Right, okay. I think that was all I wanted to ask about.
Okay, I think I got everybody. I have a couple of questions. Well, one, I think talking with the neighbors, I think that's huge. And I go to Countryside Vet, and you have to sit outside while you wait on your dogs now. And so I was out there, my dog had been sick, and I was out there for a while. I didn't hear any dogs bark next door. I'm gonna actually look into it a little bit more too, but I didn't hear them at all. So I wonder, and like you said, if somebody's always with them, that would keep it down. But I think if you could talk to the neighbors, that would be huge. So for the next meeting, maybe you could come up with some solutions, by then. Evan, do we have to open the public hearing tonight since it was advertised?
I would recommend you open it. The public has attended, they've waited.
Yeah.
If you choose not to open it, you're just piling on for the 12th, which is becoming a very busy meeting.
Okay, well, I think we're actually looking out for the public and so, but that's fine. So do we need to have a vote then to open up the public hearing, or?
You can do it.
Okay, so we vote to open up the public hearing, and is there anyone from the public calling that's ready?
I think there's 2 people with their hands up. Victor.
We got a letter from Victor as well. That's the one we got a letter from.
He's got his
Okay,
hand
Victor.
not answering. Anderson, S. Anderson.
Hi, I'm in the property directly across the street, 199 Turnpike Road. I can join on video here.
What's your name?
Hi. Sorry,
Please state your name and address.
Sarah Anderson, 199 Turnpike Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I didn't submit a letter because I was going to show up to the public hearing, so I didn't realize how important it was. So if you give us a little bit more time, I'll be happy to delineate my concerns in writing so that everyone can read it. We have cohabitated nicely with the industrial property across the street for over 10 years. It's been great, but we have a number of concerns that have only partially been addressed through some of the dialogue today. So I appreciate the recommendation to allow for more time and consideration of this. But I think what you'll hear from myself and my neighbors is that we have deep concerns about how toxic this business will be. Our property value depreciation has not yet been addressed, which I think is a real concern, which has been something that's happened elsewhere when these types of businesses have come in. It feels like it's going to be a bad fit. It's not even going to occupy the whole building. It seems like a rush job since the tenant just moved out in March. And I also think that when you have to have this many special accommodations to a property, it really means, that the fit is inappropriate. And so we should think about a better use of the industrial space going forward. So I know that my neighbors have other things to say that are legitimate, so I'll cede the floor, but thanks for giving us a chance to speak. We are deeply concerned, losing sleep, and very passionate about having this resolved in a way that alleviates our concerns.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Yeah, I would like to speak.
Your name and address, please.
My name is David Lasky. I am at 3 Milestone Avenue. I am the one who submitted the letter. I think you would have had more letters from our residents, but we were not really notified. I had found out because the town, I guess, chose to choose abutters within 300 feet just to notify. We are a condominium association that has 8 buildings and 16 units that all are within about between 200 feet, which is our closest unit, to about 1,200 feet. The amount of noise generated by these type of dog facilities is large and is loud. It is documented that dogs' barks can be from 100 to 110 decibels, and even at 1,000 feet away, that can be 74 decibels. One only needs to look at Carlisle Canines, which is 1/5 to 1/6 the proposed size of this dog care facility. So we're talking 10 dogs that are kept indoors at all times, only allowed outside when they need to go. And if you look at the meetings from the town for the last 2 years, they are filled with noise complaints, and that has escalated to lawsuits. I have also consulted with 3 real estate agents who have labeled this type of business as toxic, have told us that the property values for those directly adjacent to this facility will lose 20% of their value, and others are 10%. So we are looking between 1.5 to 2.5 million dollars. There are 75 homes within 100 feet of this facility. While it is zoned industrial, 66% of the actual frontage neighbors are B residential areas. And if you were to draw that 1,000-foot pie chart, over 75% of the businesses or the space occupied is actually residential. This is actually one of the worst places in a zoned industrial because of the proximity to residents that you could actually put this type of business. And lastly, because of COVID and the fact that the majority of the people are now working from home, this type of disruption is even worse during the day. I grew up raising dogs. My family raised champion Weimaraners. I grew up with a kennel, and I have neighbors who are dealing with a kennel that is 1/5 the size of this. And those dogs are kept indoors at all times, not having a play space of 3,000 square feet almost, which is almost like 25% of a football field, where you're going to have 50 dogs running free. Anytime you put that amount of dogs who are not familiar with each other, you are going to get a large amount of noise. So between the disruption to all the neighborhood, the close proximity to the number of residents, again, we have 75 homes within 1,000 feet. And if you go to 1,200 feet, you're over 150 homes, because then you start bringing in mill and 3. Just the noise, the property value disruption. Nobody wants to move in if there's a dog daycare center right next door, because everyone knows that these can be noisy, they can smell, and the fact that they have such a facility for outdoor, it's just not an appropriate use of the land. Trident Systems, who was in there for 20 years, was a great tenant. We never were aware of them. This is not a proper use, in my opinion, of this land and going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anyone else calling?
I would. Oh, sorry, Ron, you can go.
Oh, thanks. If that's okay. My name's Ronald Rail. I'm at 201 Turnpike Road. Is it okay if I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. So we are the owners of 201 Turnpike. We are actually, if you were to draw a radius, myself and Sarah, who you already heard from, who is just across that wall, in a 2-family structure, we are the closest of everybody on the map. And we've lived here since 2006. So these several hundred feet estimates that are going on, you can look in Google Maps. I just eyeballed it from Google Maps satellite view today. I'm sitting right now, this chair is 124 feet that way to the front of the paved area, which is the beginning of that section, which is going to become the outdoor enclosure. So thinking of this as thousands of feet away or 600 feet away is really just wrong for a good number of us who are very, very close. I'm going to just briefly list, in respect of time, I'll be very brief, but I have 4 reasons why I think that we should really consider whether this is appropriate. The first is noise. It's obviously a noisy operation. We've talked about 50 dogs, but it can be up to 100. And so, you know, nice assurances at the beginning that it's going to be kept very small and responsibly run. We really have to look at what it actually allows, and that's up to 100 dogs. That can be very noisy. And I'd like to also point out that it's not just about disturbing our right for peaceful enjoyment of this property as a home, but it's already been mentioned. Well, first of all, I'm a professional engineer, and I've worked remotely since 2016 with my current employer from this very chair. I've been in this has been my home office for 5 years now. And now with the COVID-19 pandemic, my wife, who has a similar career, is immediately downstairs. She's the same 124 feet away, just 1 floor down. Sarah and John, both working professionals, also I believe during the pandemic having to work from home, are just over there. So essentially the same distances. So we're not just looking at use of the property, degradation of our use of the property as a home, but these are our careers. And for at least for myself and my business, that is going to continue in a fully remote fashion even after the pandemic. So it's not just a temporary concern. It's like, oh, COVID is done eventually. We don't have to worry about that. This is really a new working mode going forward. And I think the zoning should consider that. Secondly, is smell. Remember the distances I was talking about? So you know how warm and humid the summers can get here. We're 120 something feet. What happens when I open the office window and the wind is going from the wrong direction? Somebody mentioned earlier on the presentation, they called out the place where the dumpsters would be added. That's the same place the dumpsters used to be. We walk by the neighborhood all the time. That used to be filled with little bits of metal and wood. And imagine a 95-degree humid day in Chelmsford summer with that filled with dog feces being emptied once per week and the wind blowing this direction. So the second concern is smell. The third has already been mentioned. It's our concern on the impact on property values. David is the chairperson of our condo association. He's already spoken. You heard him estimate that he has estimates in hand from realtor professionals of 10 to 20%. For us personally, 10 to 20% is a 40 to 80,000 poof degradation of our personal net worth, just like that, with the approval of potentially with approval of this type of special permit. Those have already been touched, but there's a fourth one, which I think hasn't been mentioned yet, and I'd like to draw it out, and which is that this is really just unnecessary. If we were in an absolute dry spell for any kind of real estate, for this type of business, for light industrial, for commercial, that would be one thing. But that road, Turnpike, that's just the beginning, the corner of what, as you know, you're the zoning board, a very, very large industrial area. We walk through that all the time, and I'm just spitballing it, but it's got to be a couple of square miles. We walk for a good 50 minutes before we get to the other side of it. So what I'd like to suggest that with everything we just talked about, this property, you could see it on the map. Draw the map back a little bit. Don't just look at the exact property. Draw back just a little bit with your view, and you're right on the edge of this, right next to where the residences are. So it's really just unnecessary. we walk through that neighborhood, and there is plenty of empty real estate in the same zone. My former employer that I left in 2015 was in 2 Omni, 6 Omni, 4 Omni. Even to this day, 6 years after I left them, those properties are either fully vacant or partially vacant. So there's absolutely no reason that this same business can't achieve exactly what they're trying to achieve. You know, I don't mean to speak against the motivations of the person that is proposing this business. I mean, saving dogs in Puerto Rico, this is wonderful, and I don't object to that. But there is easily in the same town, serving the same clientele, the same access from roads pretty much, just a little further. It doesn't have to be, it's unnecessary. It doesn't have to be immediately adjacent to the residential properties. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Yes, this is Victor Garofalo. I live at 5 Milestone Ave. I'm also a town meeting member at Precinct 4. I'd like to go to the comment about the 600 feet. When you sent out the abutting letters to the residents around, I actually commented on this to Evan. That abutting, that circumference actually hit Milestone Ave. but because it didn't actually hit our houses, we were told that we were not going to get a letter. So the 600 feet is just a false. Ron indicated he's about 124 feet from the property. I probably live about maybe 150 feet away from Ron at an angle. So the fact that, you know, we're 600 feet away and we're not going to be impacted by this is false. Not to mention the traffic. I know that they've been monitoring the traffic on Turnpike Road. There are cars that speed up and down this road all day long. And it's a major issue on this road when it comes to traffic and the impact of traffic on that road. I really, you know, I have no problem with dogs. I love dogs. But to have a kennel that you say there's going to be 50 dogs and you know you can go to 100, and for the attorney to say that the dogs are not going to bark, unless you plan on, you know, muzzling these dogs, how do you control the dogs not barking? There's just no way you can control the dogs not barking. You can say everything you want tonight about this is going to happen and this is going to happen. But once this is approved, then it's done. And the owner can do whatever they want. And it's up to the code to basically enforce any type of violations. But how do you enforce a violation on barking dogs? You just can't. I'm adamantly opposed to this. I think there's other areas of the town where this would not impact any residents. I've lived here. We've not had any impact to the commercial industrial properties across the street. And, you know, I support my neighbors and the fact that, you know, this is just a bad thing for the town.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Colleen, anyone else?
Not that I can see, no.
Okay.
We had another resident who wanted to say something. Bob, did you talk? You have your hand raised. You're on mute though, Bob, if you wanted to say something. And Judy? Oh, great.
This is actually Lucia Pacetti. I'm on 24 Freeman Road. I am not very close to the property. However, I do use Turnpike Road to go to and from work. And I can imagine what this is going to do to the traffic by adding an extra 100 cars in the morning and again in the evening. As it is, that intersection is a blind spot. It's dangerous. And I'm concerned about the traffic there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, one more comment, please. Jessica Porter. I'm also at 5 Milestone Avenue. We, again, are part of the Milestone Condominium Association. This affects our entire complex here. As others who spoke before me indicated, we stand unified in this and support all of our fellow condo association owners. We did also have the same concerns about the abutters notices, who got what. I understand, obviously, there's provisions in the law that say they get mailed to a certain footage from the project being proposed, but certainly I've also have experience where the right thing to do is sometimes to expand that scope a little bit further and expand it to additional residences that might fall outside of the zone, just in the best interest of transparency and sharing the project with everybody. So again, those are my thoughts. I concur with everything that's been said before me in terms of my fellow neighbors and friends in this neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Evan, is there, could you just maybe address, what's that?
So I have another comment. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Ray Gaddy. I live at 175 Turnpike Road. I've been on Turnpike Road for over 40 years. I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of proposals, and I think having a dog kennel is probably the most unusual one. I try to picture myself looking out the window and seeing a dog kennel out my front window. And it's difficult to imagine, but in my opinion, I think that would be motivation to move. And as far as new people moving in, I think it would detract certainly from the value of the property, as has been said earlier. So I asked the board, just if you could put yourself in our shoes, looking across the street, what goes on there? I have one other thing to share, and I'm going to cite and I know you're familiar with this, I'm sure everyone has memorized the zoning bylaws. This is Article 24. Yes, Section 195-143, Purpose and Intent, Section E. And let me just reread this because every time there's a development, I take this to heart. Section F, I'm sorry. Not to disturb residential neighbors or detract from the appearance of the town, and will result in the maintenance of a balanced and workable relationship between the existing office/business park, new business amenities, and adjacent residential neighborhoods. So I thank you for allowing us to speak, and thank you for considering our concerns in the neighborhood.
Thank you. I was thinking maybe we could, if there's any more public opinion, put it off to our next meeting. I'd give the proponents a time to maybe work with the neighbors and we can go from there. Evan, can you address the notification so that we're just all clear on that?
Yeah, so we follow the law. The law is 300 feet from the perimeter property line of the subject property. That 300 feet abutters list has to be certified by the assessors. So it was certified. The reason we do not arbitrarily extend is that 300 feet per zoning case law identifies those abutters that have legal standing. Those outside of 300 feet do not have legal standing. And that's the primary purpose for the Zoning Act identifying the 300-foot abutter notification. And as I mentioned, over the years, when appeals have been taken and they go to land court, the court system has clearly identified that it's only those abutters within 300 feet that have legal standing. So it would be doing a disservice to the community to send a message that they have legal standing. They certainly have the right to participate, and that's what they're doing tonight.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, this is Victor Garofalo from 5 Milestone. Is there any way you can put up the picture, Evan, that you actually sent to me showing the perimeter and the abutters so that people can actually see the houses that are being impacted?
While that's coming up, that's a separate matter. Clearly, you were aware of the hearing. You're here tonight. So, I don't want to get into the weeds on case law here.
Yeah, I think we've kind of beat that up enough. I mean,
sure.
He explained it, and then where would you stop? Would you go to 320 to go to 330? No. So, I mean, he did 300.
We're consistent, 300 feet.
Unfortunately, if you guys were out of it, we apologize for that, but that's why, if you look at the town, it's on the site and stuff like that. So, all right, can we then put the public hearing, can we push this off to the next meeting, giving everybody an opportunity, the neighbors, to write letters? You said you had information from realtors stating that you are going to lose 20% of your value. Anything that you have that would help us make a decision, please do send. And that's it. So I think we'll have the applicant meet with the neighbors and move from there, and we'll move the meeting.
What I'll do, Mr. Chairman, is I think I have Mr. Lusker's email from the letter he sent to Colleen, and he seems, I think, the head of the association. So I'll email him to have a site visit that the neighbors can come to next week, one afternoon after work, so that they can come and see the site and voice any concerns they may have. But I'd also ask the board to do, if they have time over the next 2 weeks, go by Countryside Vet, Rough House. They're operating a little bit larger facilities there, but sit outside, see if you can smell, hear dogs. I think that's an important piece to see how other Chelmsford facilities are operating. And then this way, when we come back on the 14th, we'll have some better insight, or the 12th, I should say, we'll have some better insight there. So I will set that meeting up for next week, Mr. Chairman.
I would also suggest that you look around if you visit those facilities to see how far away they are from residences, and maybe actually try.
Who's speaking right now? Who's
That has
speaking?
Sarah Anderson.
Okay, all right. We're gonna stop for tonight on this. Go ahead, Mike, raise
You
back.
might want a motion to continue the public hearing?
Yeah, yes, yes.
You got it.
All right, can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? I'm gonna do roll call. Mike Raisback,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Mike Walsh,
Aye.
Deirdre,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and Erica.
Aye.
All right, excellent. And Deirdre, I hope I'm not butchering your name again. Deirdre, I'm sorry if I am, but all right. So we'll go on to the next meeting. Everyone good with that? All right, thank you. Okay, next up. All right, the next meeting you said was the 12th anyways for that, right? For 200 Turnpike, it will be on the 12th. Now we are at 56 Pile Drive. And it's Hub Foundation. The property is located in IA Limited Industrial Zoning District. The project proposes an expansion of an outdoor contractor yard with the construction of a second structure of 10,000 square feet and associated site improvements. Applicant requests a minor modification to previously approved site plan approval and special permit. Site plan approval, section 195-104, special permits per section 195-13 for multiple principal structures, and any other relief that is may be deemed necessary. Someone here from the Hub Foundation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Douglas DeShane from the law firm of Finneran and Nicholson here this evening representing Hub Foundation as well as Rochambeau LLC, the owners of the property. With me this evening, Matt Waterman from Land Tech Consultants, Inc., and Meyer Minkin from Hub Foundation. We're here this evening with regard to the property at 56 Pile Drive. The property is 2.15 acres in size and is located as stated in the IA district. It is also located within your CEIOD and BAOD. Recall that in 2019, my clients received permits to operate an outdoors contractor's yard on the site, including the construction of a 4,800 square foot building. While that construction is underway and was expected to be finished certainly before now, unfortunately, my clients have been waiting nearly 16 months for National Grid to agree to install electrical service to the site. It has been quite the process trying to get electricity to the site. However, I am happy to report that just recently, National Grid has agreed to schedule to come in and put the electrical service in soon. In the interim, my clients have decided to seek approvals to build a second building on the site. As was mentioned, they are proposing a 10,000 square foot building, which will be used for indoor storage of material that's currently being stored outdoors in the same location. As such, because we are proposing a second principal structure on the site, we do need a special permit under section 195-12, multiple principal buildings. And because the proposed building is greater than 500 square feet in size, we are required to obtain site plan approval. However, after consultation with planning staff, what we've done is we are seeking to satisfy the site plan requirement by modifying the recent site plan approval that this board granted, in late 2019. So we are here for a special permit for the second building and also for site plan review because it's over 500 square feet. With the board's permission, I would like Mr. Waterman to give you a quick overview of the proposal and the impacts that it will have on the site.
Please do.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. And actually, I may have Colleen scroll to the next page down, but, and if I repeat anything that Doug mentioned, I apologize, but there was approvals back in 2018 for the contractor's yard. The existing building is up. It's not, they don't have their occupancy permit, but they're working and they're getting close to putting that together and wrapping up the items associated with building one. It included improvements to the private way Pile Drive, which is the only access for off of Pile Drive is for this site. It's a single access to 56 Pile Drive. Obviously, all the improvements, parking, stormwater, and utilities for the first building were approved with the site plan. There was a large underground infiltration system. There was landscaping and restoration of some wetland buffer on the right-hand side of the plan view as you're looking at it. And all of those improvements are working to be done. Building 2, which is why we're here tonight, we're requesting a site plan modification and a special permit for a second building. Includes the 10,000 square foot building. It's located directly adjacent to building 1. It's about, I think, 30 feet away from it, 20 feet away from it. I apologize. I don't have my glasses on. I can't see very well. But there's no changes in the drainage system. So the drainage system and the total impervious area for the site for the original site plan does not change with this layout. The parking was reconfigured to mimic the total impervious area for the previously approved plan. And as you're looking at the plan on the screen, there's kind of the two buildings on the lower part of the screen, and then the pavement is the dark shaded area with some curvature to it as you move to the center of the plan. The remaining part of the yard is gravel and it's still utilized as storage. So it's a little misleading. They do use the extents of their yard for their drilling business. They do have equipment that they store on site. They have a lot of specialized equipment that gets used once a year, once every 3 years. So they do end up storing some of their equipment that doesn't get used on every job. But it's equipment that they do keep and use on other jobs. The parking on the existing building was 5 spaces. We're going to add an additional 7 spaces with the second building. We don't anticipate any increase in employees or traffic activity with this building. It's merely just for more internal storage, as Doug referred to. So they're not expanding traffic patterns or the number of employees that will be accessing the yard. It's simply just to provide additional storage. Pavement was reconfigured, as I said before, so that we don't increase impervious. Utilities will be extended, and they actually, when they were connecting utilities to building 1, they did stub off water and sewer in the direction of building 2, just as kind of in case they were to proceed with the second building. Financially, they weren't able to do that when we did the site plan back in 2018, and it wasn't something that they had planned for originally. But we're here today to proceed with that. There's no changes within the wetland buffer areas. All the work is outside of the 100-foot wetland buffer areas. I know we have a letter from the engineering department. Sewer is an important issue in the town of Chelmsford. There is no increase in the minimal increase with a building of this size. When you're based on Title V flows, it's based on a per employee. And we're not increasing the employees, but if you took a straight employees that utilize the building as a whole, it's still only about 100 gallons per day, or about 8 employees. And I think the town engineer, Christina, has mentioned that she does not think that the sewer moratorium is applicable to this second building. The economics, and I can't get into that in great detail, but obviously they're a small company. This improves the economy of their business, the economics of the town. It's important to Hub that this building is designed in accordance with the COID overlay district, which allows a second building with special permit. And we meet the design requirements of that overlay district. And I guess I'll turn it back over to Doug. I can't think of anything else, Doug, unless you can.
No, I think the biggest point here is that although we're adding another building, we are not changing the total amount of impervious, traffic, parking, employees. Really, we're just taking what is currently used as outdoor storage and making it indoor storage. As Matt said, they do have some specialized equipment that is best stored indoors rather than out in the weather. With that, we're certainly happy to answer any questions the board might have. One other thing I do want to mention, I'm sorry, none of the work associated with this new building is within the buffer zone, and therefore we are not triggering a need for a new order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. We're outside of the 100-foot buffer.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we go around the board? Mike Walsh?
All right, unmuted. Just a couple of quick questions. Evan, on the agenda, it talks about they're looking for a special permit per 195-13. Isn't that just for residential? Is that a wrong number? Just trying to clarify that.
The multiple principal structure is applicable to commercial districts and industrial districts.
Okay.
So that's why they're seeking that special permit.
Yeah, but it doesn't mention that in the multiple principal structures is not mentioned in 195-13.
Oh, is the citing wrong? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I mean. I think the citing of the bylaw number is wrong. And I was just trying to clarify which one are they referring to.
I think my cover letter refers to 195-12.
Okay.
That's a Scrivener's error. Thank you.
That's fine. No. I don't want to make a big deal. I just wanted to clarify that. And then the other question is, what's the height of the building?
Hold on one second. Maya, who is online with Hub Foundation, I don't know if she knows the answer to that, but I can check the plans and see if there's a height.
That's fine. That's the only question I have. Maybe that can be answered by the time the rest of the questions are done.
Okay. Next up, Paul McDougall.
How does that not affect the sewer moratorium? That's what I don't understand. Adding a 10,000 square foot building? Are there not bathrooms? I don't get it. Am I missing something?
There is, it is a large building, but it's a small incremental increase in the design flow for the septic, which was in conformance with the moratorium, which allows for small increases for existing buildings, is my understanding.
Okay, that's the only question I would have on it, I think.
Okay. Next up, Deirdre.
Just a point of clarification from what I think it was Matt just said for the septic. Is there a septic on this or is it sewer?
No, it's sewer, but the kind of the standard to measure design flows is based on Title V flows. So
I see.
I kind of
Okay.
use the word interchangeably. Sorry.
That's fine. I just was confused. I don't have any concerns other than I do share Paul's request for clarification on the impact of the sewer moratorium on this plan.
Okay. Next up, Henry.
This building is gonna be mostly just warehouse. Yeah, I don't have any problem with sewer moratorium on a warehouse floor space. I think it's, I'm just glad to have a good business in town. It's in a great spot and they don't make a lot of noise, so I'm good.
Thank you, Henry. Nance.
Yeah, I have a probably rude question. And that is if we approve this building, are they going to clean up that site?
Well, as I said, what we're doing, it is a contractor's yard. We do store a lot of things outside. This building will give us 10,000 square feet of indoor storage that will replace outdoor storage. So it will remove, the visual impacts of the multiple storage outside. I can.
So it's an improvement. Yeah, all right.
Okay, Erica,
No, I'm all set.
Mike Raisback.
Yeah, this seems like a perfectly appropriate use for this property, and I'm for it. I have no concerns.
Okay, so it looks like we just, there was a sewer clarification, and the one other thing I wanted to ask, so you build this 10,000 square foot for storage, and your employees are gonna stay the same size. Can that change, like in, 6 months? Can you then turn it into something, with more employees, or now you're getting bigger and you're not using it for storage, or would you have to come back, I guess, for another permit if that was the case? If it changed from storage?
Well, I guess I would ask Evan to verify this, but as long as I would suspect if there's a change in use of the building, that we would have to come in for a site plan review. But again,
I'd agree with that. What's being requested is 10,000 square feet of indoor contractor yard storage. The parking that's being proposed is based upon that use. The sewer moratorium determination is being based upon that specific proposal. And
okay,
your decision would include that as a condition.
Okay.
So it sounds like our decision would need to really clarify that that's what we're approving.
Yeah, I think that's just what I was wondering, if it could, could be, right now you're ideal. It's not that many employees. It's going to be used for storage. It's a great fit, but if all of a sudden they change it and you have a ton, more employees, but you would have to come back in front of us for approval. So that's fine. I don't have any other questions. Anybody else? Did I miss anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to answer the question on the building height. Just received notice from my client, the total building height is 26 feet.
Okay.
And I would clarify on the sewer moratorium, and I'm just reading from working with the town engineer, and I don't mean to speak on behalf of her, but it says it's not subject to the current sewer moratorium based on the definition of the sewer moratoriums.
Okay, speaking of that, do we have anybody, Colleen, any letters or any, Christina that wants to speak, or?
We have a couple letters. Christina's going to read hers.
Okay,
Hi, Christina Papadopoulos here. So I have a letter, April 20th, 2021, to the planning board. Dear members, this office has reviewed the site plans by Land Tech consisting of 7 sheets dated March 30, 2021, and a stormwater management report dated August 2, 2019, revised through March 26, 2021. As a result of this review, this office has the following comments. This department shall be notified when work on site is to commence in order to arrange for inspections. No revisions to the drainage system are proposed at this time. Any revisions to the drainage system shall be submitted and approved by this office. The stormwater operation and maintenance plan shall be followed as described in the report. Copies of any inspections or other reports done in accordance with the plan shall be forwarded to the engineering office. A site as-built shall be provided upon completion of the work on site. As-built to include a letter from the engineer stating that all stormwater devices have been built to satisfy Mass stormwater standards. Provide all supporting documents and calculations. The as-built shall be from a ground survey and submitted in AutoCAD in paper form. The sewer moratorium imposed by the Chelmsford Department of Public Works that became effective on September 15, 2020 does not apply to this project because the proposed sewer use will be less than 500 gallons per day. Since the moratorium is not applicable, the new building will be allowed to tie into the town's sewer system. The proposed sewer work will require permitting and applicable fees from the DPW Sewer Division for connection to the municipal sewer system. And the design engineer will receive design and drafting review comments from this office. Sincerely, Christina Papadopoulos, town engineer.
thank you, Christina.
No problem.
Colleen, fire, police.
Let's see, where am I? So we had the police. They have no concerns. Board of Health has no concerns. And we did not get a letter from fire. And
Is there a reason? Is there a reason, Colleen, that we didn't get a letter from fire? I mean, if a new building's gonna be there, and what are they gonna be storing? I guess equipment that's already being stored on site, right?
Oh, I have no idea why I didn't get one.
We'll follow up with them
Okay,
and it can be included in the draft decision.
okay.
It's my understanding in the original decision that there was some conditions with hazardous material storage and spill kits and things like that that were conditionally approved with the original site plan. So I'm certain that those would apply with this.
Okay, so if we can get a letter to make sure that, states all that as previously, and, Evan, that can be put in, you said, to the decision?
Yes.
Okay, so does anybody else have any other questions? I mean, any other comments? Does anyone have a motion?
I would make a motion that we go for a draft decision to have Evan put one together, stating that we waiting for that we want to get the fire department's letter in there also.
Okay, Henry, can I just ask one question though? The board members that were questioning the sewer, are they comfortable now with what they got from an answer?
Yes.
That's fine.
Deidre, I think you
Yes.
also, okay, you guys are fine with that. I just wanted to make sure before we voted. Okay, so we have a motion from Henry,
Second.
Tim,
second from Mike Raisback.
quick question, Tim.
Yes, yes,
It's a public hearing, so I don't think there's any public, but I think you got to open and then close it.
yes, yeah, thank you, Mike, for that. Is there anyone calling from the public?
I don't see anybody.
Okay, so
Close public hearing.
Second.
Motion, second. All in favor? I'll go through.
Aye.
I'll do a roll call just so there's no confusion. Mike Walsh,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Deirdre,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
and Mike Raisback.
Aye.
Okay, all right, so the public hearing is now closed. Do we have another motion?
Well, do you want a motion at this time to allow the permits, or do we want to wait to see the draft?
Evan, are we gonna do it with that in the draft, that we will receive the letter from the fire department, or?
I will get a letter for them for your review as part of reviewing the draft decision.
Okay.
Can we wait until the next meeting then to approve this after receiving that, or do they looking to get this?
That's fine.
How about
I mean,
with the proponents? I mean,
Well, Mr. Chairman, while we would always like an approval so that we know that we can move forward with the work we have to do to, satisfy the decision.
what if we did a straw tonight, and then you at least, and then we'll get the letter and just be a formality? Would that be?
That would be appreciated, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
We'll just wait for the draft decision.
Okay, is that okay with the board members? I'll go through.
Honestly, I think we could simply vote to approve and then wait to see the decision. I mean, do we really think there's likely to be anything seriously wrong in the fire department letter?
No, we don't think that there is. We just want to make sure that the letter is there and in the
Yeah, it has
file,
to be in the
because it
file.
does
Right.
have the. Yeah. Yeah, so I honestly, I don't think it's gonna make much of a difference. So let's just do a straw poll on this, right? A straw poll, and then we can, next meeting we'll be done and get them out of there. So why don't I go around? Mike Walsh? Mike Walsh?
Nancy wanted to
Oh,
say
Nancy? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Nancy.
could we simply do a motion to approve subject to the conditions of the fire department letter?
I personally feel we should not be voting on incomplete plans.
Yeah, I honestly, I think this would be a good start for us to, not do that going forward. So why don't we wait till we have the letter, just to be sure. It's not gonna make a difference. We just talk to them. Then it doesn't matter to them, as long as they have a poll. So why don't we just go through the poll, and then we'll button this up the next meeting. So Mike Walsh? Henry,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
and Mike Raisback.
I'm an aye.
Is
And I'm
Erica
not.
voting on this?
And you know what? I don't think she is voting on it, but
No.
I did ask her, so, but that's, we have a unanimous. All right, is that, Doug, you good with that? And then the next meeting, when we get the letter, we can finish it off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate your efforts.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you at the next meeting.
The 12th?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't really think it mattered with Erica voting on that. That was just a straw poll anyway, so.
You do
Next.
probably want to continue the hearing now, where you did close it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank
Do
you.
we have to do anything else with that, Evan, or are we okay?
No, you're good.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the help. So next up, we have new business, the master plan update. Anyone?
No.
Mike or Nan, you want to give an update?
Well, I can give a rough one. The master plan committee is on the home stretch. Most of the chapters are complete or very close to complete, and they are ready for some review. Evan, we've put the available stuff somewhere where everybody can get it.
Yeah, within probably the next week or so, the members will be receiving a file share link to NIMCOG's website. They're our consultant. Those will have drafts. They're essentially final working drafts as reviewed by the Master Plan Committee. And those file share link will be available for the Planning Board to review. What the subcommittee has discussed, and as you recall, there's a subcommittee of the Planning Board. George Zaharoulis is the chair. He's looking for the Planning Board to determine how the board wants to proceed with its review of the chapters and the master plan in its totality, and how the Planning Board wants to engage with the Master Planning Committee. So maybe for your next meeting on the 12th, you guys can think about it, and we can brainstorm some ideas. The Master Planning Committee is more than willing to come in and do a kind of a high-level presentation, answer questions. But I think it's worthwhile for the board to at least consider and have a discussion as to what kind of process the Planning Board would like to have internally and externally for review and ultimately approval.
Okay. Do we have a date set up for this meeting, or is it just going to be in the near future? Or?
Well, the Master Planning Committee, as I mentioned, is more than happy to present. I'm not sure that will be time permitting on the 12th. So I think it makes sense. So let's put an agenda item on the 12th for the Planning Board to discuss, in addition to hearing from the Master Planning Committee, if there are any other procedures, protocols that the Planning Board may be interested in as part of their review and approval.
Okay. Does anyone on the board have any questions? Go ahead.
I was going to make a suggestion. With the 12th being a heavy agenda, can we set up either a special night that we can do just a review of just the the master plan draft?
That's a good idea.
Mike, you're probably not going to want to review the draft initially. I think the better bet would be to get an overview of it and then go away and review it chapter by chapter. Remember that this thing will end up as, I don't know, 500 or 600 pages when it's done.
Okay, thank you for that suggestion. That's good.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that big, so.
It's huge.
I just want to give George the proper time to present to the board, maybe a high-level executive summary, and then we go away from there and review it ourselves.
I think that makes more sense.
I just think the
And we
12th is
don't have
lining
all
up.
the chapters ready for review yet. There's still a couple of them that are being worked on.
Do you want to talk with George and find out, Evan, a date that would work better, even if it's a, not a regular meeting, that we could do this?
Yeah, let me speak to George. I'm looking at the calendar. Maybe Wednesday, the 19th may work. But let me talk to George. I'll get back to you.
Okay. Everyone else on the board fine with that?
Yeah.
All right. Everyone's shaking their head like the Brady Bunch. All right. So that's that discussion. Now we had a schedule at a work session. I don't know if would be appropriate to maybe do it the time when we, have that meeting with George. Evan, do you think that would be acceptable?
Yeah, I think maybe, allotting, 2 hours for a total meeting. George's presentation will take an hour, but maybe the committee's discussion on master planning takes an hour. So yeah, I think that's blend those two together. Makes sense.
Okay, so we'll wait to schedule the work session to when we hear from George, and we'll go from there on that. Any old business?
Well, the last time we had talked about, Mike Raisbeck had brought up who enforces like getting from 95 to 100% on projects and maybe having a work session on that. There was a couple other things. One was on the PILO. And also Nan had brought up delegation of various procedures to subgroups or sub-individuals. And I don't really want those to keep falling ahead. I don't know, maybe if we could bite off one of them at that meeting, or maybe that would still be too much. But I feel like in interest of giving priority of these to not look for where we have a few minutes here or there.
I can probably talk to that a little bit because I kind of started this whole conversation and this whole thing going.
Mm-hmm.
I have gone around to other towns and seen what they take and do to try to streamline the process.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that was interesting, I was working in Littleton the other day, controversial developments, they bring in a third-party engineer.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely would like that.
Boxborough takes and does a more extensive layout for basically the planning board, which makes a little sense. I have talked to a couple other board members, and I want to bring it out, get it out in the open. Evan, and certain engineers in this town are kind of running on an all-time low, and I don't particularly care for it. I'd like to take and find out if there's some way we can work our way around it and try to get some trust back. And there's right now there's a lot of people not satisfied with information we're getting. People aren't satisfied with stuff that we've got from some of the engineers. I think a third party would help with that. I am doing homework on it. I am talking around. I went and Boxborough had an interesting layout, and I want to try to see if I can get a copy of it and send it to other board members and see how other towns handle this situation. I think clarity would make a huge difference. And
Henry, the services you're talking about, who pays for that?
Usually like the third party, it's like $1,500. I was talking to Littleton, and they push it off to the builder to take and do it on a large project. It's not something that's required on all projects, but especially controversial projects. The reason I ran into it is they're developing my father's old land up there, and they were talking to me, and I was like, and they were saying third party had to come in, go over they're not even changing use on that project, but the neighbors are upset. And they're looking at it, and they thought it was definitely worth it to have a professional pair of eyes look at.
Has the town ever done this before in the past?
Town does it. Chelmsford doesn't do it, but Littleton does it for almost every project.
Has Chelmsford ever had this service?
I don't know.
So
Okay.
Henry, if you're referring to a peer review, a third-party peer review, I think that's what you're referring to, unless Littleton does not have in-house capability to do engineering reviews. So in Chelmsford, the zoning board has done third-party peer reviews for engineering and wetlands when it comes to 40Bs. However, more recently, they've been relying on the in-house expertise of the DPW engineering office. So it's a little unclear to me, what the intent is. It's one thing for the board to feel as though submissions are inadequate or lacking. However, that's kind of the role of the town engineer, working on behalf of the board within its rules and regulations and standards to identify those deficiencies.
I'll give you one. I'll give you one, for instance, Evan, right now. Yeah, back to my favorite subject, the Verizon building, where the water was draining out into the road. I asked Christina, should they have a sign off? Every building permit that's pulled, you got a whole list that goes. You got building inspector, electrical inspector, should stormwater be on it?
What's that?
It was pretty obvious. Water was running straight across the sidewalk, right into the road, bringing that the curb cut was never brought all the way out.
What does that have to do with the planning board?
What?
What does that have to do with the planning board? Did it require a planning board permit?
Yes, that whole project did. You don't remember that?
Which project?
Where the Verizon building was, that I brought it up before, and Christine said, yeah, it was totally illegal. It's getting to I'm trying to get trust back. And I mean, I don't want to bring up the conversation that I heard you and Colleen and Paul have in the town meeting, in the town office.
I thought we were talking about town engineers. Private engineers.
Let's not attack so that we don't get anywhere. So let's try to think positive. Henry, obviously you're bringing up some, I think would be a great idea, obviously, on bigger projects. Not to say, Evan, right, it has to happen all the time, but if we were able to get a third-party engineer, we don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, these are all things that we should talk about. But we need to figure out a process whereby we have a master list rather than discussing them haphazardly. Because they're coming fast and furious. For example, I thought Henry was referring to the private project engineers being lax from a board's perspective.
I'm telling you, I did say it's coming from all sides. I mean,
that's news to me. I've never heard the board or individual board members say that the internal review was lax.
Well, let's move forward with the positive stuff out of this. Maybe we can work together to look into this third-party engineer and see if this is something that we could incorporate on bigger projects. Evan, we have been talking about, working together, making sure we have complete packages, things like that. I think a couple of things, like just even that fire department letter. Now, it's not really a big deal, but we want to make sure that if we just approved it tonight and that letter never got in there, then they could end up storing whatever they want. So it is kind of important to make sure we have everything. Not a dig against anybody with the way we're working, at home at night, different things. Look, it's not that easy. So maybe we can just, like you said, put together a system for each project going forward so that we get it all. And if the projects are bigger, and the planning board wants to ask for a third-party engineer review, maybe that can be triggered through the planning board. Is that something, Evan, that could be done?
Normally, peer review is based upon the board talking to its own town engineer and agreeing that there is not in-house expertise to review a very specific or complicated engineering, for example, a very large or long retaining wall, a unique hydro or geologic issue. Since I've been here, I'm not aware of the town engineering department ever indicating that they were not up to the job to review. I think as licensed professionals, if they didn't think they were up to the job, they'd be obligated to indicate to the board. You know, the notion that you're considering, again, if the town engineer agrees with it, then there's no problem. We're all in agreement. But the way we've conducted business and part of our expedited permitting and being business friendly is that unlike many towns, we provide all of our technical reviews in-house. And there's a significant benefit to the board and to the applicant in conducting business that way. So this is why I'm a little caught off guard.
You're saying this is used for small towns typically, right? The third-party review, not a town such as ours with a department.
Correct.
And
Correct. Correct.
So now I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So it's obviously for a complicated project. We can define that, and in consultation with the town engineer, there may be complicated projects for the fire department. There may be complicated projects for the Board of Health. We always have the legal ability in consultation with the other technical departments that are providing the review to the planning board to hire a third party. A good example is noise. Whether it's a doggy daycare or some other use that generates noise, there's no one on the planning board, there's no one on staff that's a noise expert. So that's a great example, the technical issue. And many planning boards, as part of their special permit process, will require a noise consultant to be the arbiter of that kind of very specialized issue. So yeah, I think we need to further discuss it. It sounds like the board has a lot of issues in mind, and unless they're specifically discussed, I'm kind of grasping as to what they are.
I wonder if we could benchmark. I wonder if we could benchmark to comparable towns. Like, I don't know what those would be, maybe Shrewsbury, Westboro, Franklin, and see how do they handle this? Do they use third-party engineers? Do they?
That's fine. I just don't know what the deficiency is. From a technical review perspective, I wasn't aware there was a deficiency.
Yeah. Henry, do you want to just research this and bring it up for another time? I think for the most part, and I'll let the board members speak for themselves, is that making sure we have everything and, letters, everything like that is probably the most important thing. And I know it's not like always, it's not your office fault. It's people sending it in late. I get that. So that's all I have. Anyone else want to say anything on this? But otherwise, I'd say we wait for Henry to do more research if that's something he wants to do on it.
Sure, that's fine.
I think that works.
Anyone else? Okay, so Evan, I really don't take it as offense because I think we just want to try to work to make things better. And
I mean, I don't really know what to say to the board. It seems like there's new issues being introduced. If the board wants staff, myself and Colleen to tighten up the submissions, we'll do that. We've never been in that business. We've always accepted applications as long as they're substantially complete. And the reason we've done that is because, one, we don't want to deny projects simply because they left one thing out. That's not something the planning board has ever asked us to do, to have a heavy hand with applications unless it's completely deficient. So it sounds like there's procedural issues, and then it sounds like there's technical issues.
Evan, at the end of the day, and let's just end it at this for now, but I think just so you know, like you just said, it's more of tightening it up so that as you see, the public is really not happy with a lot of things happening. So I think the more...
That's board business, though.
That's correct.
Board business.
Correct.
So,
we're more prepared, though. We can then defend our decisions. And I think
that's the whole point of the departments providing comment.
And we didn't get some of it tonight, though, right?
No, I know, but that's a one-off. That's not a routine. That doesn't happen routinely.
Well, all right. And then, we'll just end at that. And I think try to move forward with things. And That's that. All right. Anybody else have anything before we move on? That's it.
Your comment?
Yes?
Just, oh, by the way, the bylaw specifically says that if the letters are not submitted on time, they are, by definition, considered to have no concerns. And that's the bylaw.
Right.
So if they have no issues, they don't have to send in a letter.
We're not talking about no issues, though. We're talking about issues, and that's our concern.
I understand that, but in terms of the fire department not sending in a letter for tonight, they may very well have had no concerns and therefore chosen not to send in a letter.
But that's not the case.
And you know that they have concerns.
Well, we do. The engineer actually brought it up and said that they did it. There is a letter from the last one, so that was not brought forward again.
Why would they need to when it was already on record?
Well, we don't have it. Tonight, it would have been great for the new members to even see it. And nonetheless, they basically didn't pass it out to us. Don't you think it should have been given to us?
Not if they had no
I'm not going to
additional
argue with you.
concerns.
At the end of the day, we would like it ahead of time. That's all.
You know, along the same lines, I would have appreciated in our packet tonight to have had the proof plan and the letter of applicability that were referred back to. You know, I spent a good deal of time tracking all that stuff down. They were referred to in the plan tonight on 9 Acton Road, but they weren't part of the packet. And I feel like if something's referred to in a plan, it also should be included. Unless I missed it.
I did send it out to the board, the previous applicability and council's memo. I don't want to get in for a tit for tat with the board. Normally we do work sessions offline, but I'll just give you an example. Clearly, board members may or may not have reviewed council's memo prior to tonight. The ones that did had questions. I would have appreciated and expected a heads up that the board had questions or concerns and would like to have seen council and the town engineer at the meeting. I could have arranged for that if I had a heads up. So because I didn't get a heads up, we basically delayed it for 2 weeks. So I only know what the board tells me. I don't read your minds. I don't communicate proactively out to you. You are the elected planning board, and I've significantly adjusted the way I engage with you over the years. I very rarely write memos to the board. I'm not sure the board cares. I don't think it's welcomed. So there's a variety of issues that are going on here. Okay, this is best for a work session offline.
Yeah.
No problem at all. Point taken. We all have to do a better job. No one here is saying we're perfect and we can all improve.
None of this has even been about me. You've been talking about the fire department not submitting a letter, the town engineer, apparently the town engineer not having sufficient reviews.
I don't think that's, you know, you're again just saying that we're all saying this.
Well, this is what I'm hearing. I'm not saying you're all agreeing, because no one knows what you all agree to or don't agree to, because you don't talk about anything.
Oh, okay. Let's stop with the insults and move on. So anybody else have anything else? Anyone? All right, let's move on. Next meeting.
To adjourn.
Yes, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a great night, everyone.
Hey, good night, guys.
Good night.